Hello, I'm Ashley Dedman, a member of the Bassler Center's BRCA's Young Leadership Council. In honor of Black History Month, the Bassler Center is excited to hear from Lyndsay Levingston, founder of SurviveHER. Through her own inspiring journey as a BRCA mutation carrier and breast cancer SurviveHER, she has become an advocate to help raise awareness of BRCA-related cancers in the Black community and discusses why this is such an important topic for Black patients and their families. Lyndsay, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much, Ashley, for having me, and thank you to the Bassler Center.
Thank you. You know, Lyndsay, we know each other. I know about your inspiring journey. I want you to share more with the Bassler community about your journey. I also know you've done great work in the Black community to help address disparities through SurviveHER. And we'll talk more about that later. But first, let's dive right in. When and how did you first discover your risk for hereditary cancer?
Well, Ashley, it was during my chemotherapy journey during which I determined that I carry the BRCA1 gene mutation. Prior to diagnosis or upon being diagnosed with breast cancer, I didn't know that there were some genetic risk or hereditary risk on the paternal side of my family. So when my breast surgeon asked me, do you have any family history of cancer? I said, not that I'm aware of. But it wasn't until about midway during my chemotherapy journey that I took a genetic test through Invitae, and those results determined that I carry the BRCA1 gene mutation, which puts me at higher risk for breast and ovarian cancers.
It was really that genetic testing that gave you that information and that knowledge that you needed about your risk for carrying a mutation, and then finding out that you did in fact carry a mutation. Can you talk with us about your experience with hereditary cancer and being a BRCA mutation carrier?
So I learned so much, and I am still learning so much about the BRCA1 and 2 gene mutations and what that really means for the Black community. What I like to say and preach to the choir in all of my talks, my SurviveHER talks, is that it's so important that in the Black community, we talk about our family history, because the more we're informed, the more we can make better decisions, short-term and long-term, for our health. So for me, when I learned that I carry the BRCA1 gene mutation, that informed my surgical plan and changed my surgical plan so that I could take preventative measures to expand my life. And then it also opened the doors of conversation with my family members on the paternal side of my family. And I learned that I am the 14th Levingston, female Levingston, to have been diagnosed with breast cancer.
Wow.
And of those 14, if I'm not mistaken, I think there are 3 of us who carry that gene mutation. But no one was talking about it. And it's not until someone is diagnosed until they're made aware. But it's so critical that in the African American community, we seek genetic testing and we talk about it amongst our family members.
Absolutely. I heard you say a couple of things. Of the many things that you said, it's that conversation with our families. And historically in the Black community, we don't like to talk about those personal things. I know you've probably heard in your family as what happens in this home stays in this home.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Of course, there's certain things that we do keep private, but when it comes to health and how family members have passed away, we definitely have to have those conversations. And so when do we have those conversations? I know you were saying you were talking with your family. So those family gatherings, those family reunions.
Absolutely. We were, after my diagnosis and learning of my gene mutation carrier status, I was talking to some of my cousins and I said, we need to have a slumber party among all of the Levingston women that we can just share and exchange and swap family history stories. And it really too, it's beneficial to the next generation and the generations thereafter that we continue to spread the information, spread the wealth so that we can all extend our lifespan.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So talk to me more about navigating hereditary cancer screening and testing. Tell me about, I know this is a topic that's very overwhelming. You were navigating through this process while having received a recent diagnosis of breast cancer. What was this like for your family, and what did they learn?
So navigating it, Ashley, was really a whirlwind because I was going through, let's see, I was on round, I would think 4 or 5 of the 15 chemotherapy treatments. So while I'm undergoing that physical, mental, and emotional trauma, just being pumped with chemicals, I had to pause and reach out to family. We had to create a family tree with my nurse practitioner and really get down to see from which parent I inherited this gene. So really, it was more of an individual experience, after which I reached out to cousins to encourage them to seek genetic testing. On the paternal side of my family, since we know that that's where the gene came from and from which it was inherited. But overall, it just simply raised a level of awareness within my family and made everyone a little bit more conscientious about their health choices and decisions as it relates to short and long-term health care, ultimately.
I think that's so powerful. You said you went back and had conversations with your family. And first, I want to applaud you for that, because you now had this knowledge through genetic testing, and you went back and you shared that information with your family, which is so powerful. And y'all did your research. And I believe I heard you say you inherited this mutation from your paternal side, so your father's side of the family. I think that's so important, because a lot of times we only look at our mother's side of the family.
Exactly. We have to check both sides because we get 50% of DNA from mom and 50% from dad. But because it is breast cancer, we automatically assume that it is female or maternally driven, if that's the appropriate term. But we have to look at both sides of our DNA.
Mm-hmm. That's so powerful. That's giving me chills. That's so powerful. Yes. Share with us more about the obstacles that you have faced in your journey, and then if you faced any obstacles as a Black woman navigating through your journey.
Ashley, I will have to say that I was tremendously blessed during my journey to not have experienced any obstacles as it relates to being a Black woman, a Black breast cancer patient, now SurviveHER. I was blessed with a very dynamic team of medical professionals led by Dr. Jamie Terry, a dynamic Black woman who advocates for other women of color through their breast cancer journeys. However, I did meet, and I am meeting now through my SurviveHER work, women who are facing challenges, who are being denied mammograms because they're not at the age of 40, who are struggling with healthcare coverage, insurance challenges. So while I didn't experience it personally, I am meeting women who I can now help navigate through their experiences, those women who are experiencing challenges as women of color.
I love it, Lyndsay. I love it. I want you to share with us, why is sharing your experience important to you? And what encouragement would you give other Black men and Black women who aren't sure where to start?
It can be overwhelming, but the first thing that I always like to say is tell your story, own it, because that's part of your life now. So when I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer, stage 2B, at the age of 37, I had to process and take that time for myself to process and educate myself before I was able to share publicly all that I had experienced and was still experiencing. But I know it can be rather daunting, and the C word can be very scary. But just knowing that when you share your story, it can help someone else, to me, that's so fulfilling. If I know that I can save a woman's life by sharing with her my story, my testimony, and my journey, that would encourage that woman to get a mammogram immediately, or would encourage that spouse to encourage his wife or his mother or his aunt to seek the breast health care that she needs. I can't stress enough the power of storytelling, the power of sharing, and being open and receptive to information and to learning, because that will expand our lives. White women are being diagnosed at a higher rate than that of Black women of breast cancer. But Black women are dying at a higher rate because by the time we get to
Mhm.
the doctor, we're diagnosed at a later stage,
Too
or
late,
because
yep.
we're prolonging our appointments, we're canceling our appointments out of fear. But don't be afraid. And I'm saying this to those of you who are watching, don't be afraid to get that preventative exam, to get that mammogram, because it's better to know your status than to not know, and then to learn too late. And then we lose you. We want to expand our lives. We want to live our best, healthiest lives. And so the more proactive you are in learning and getting those necessary exams, the better it is for our community.
Absolutely. And I'll also just add to that, not being afraid, having those conversations about family history and not being afraid to explore genetic counseling and genetic testing. First, with talking with your provider, that's so important. For our viewers, if you need additional information, please visit Vassar Center, Black and BRCA, as well as the BRCA resources that can be found on the Vassar Center's website. Lyndsay, we're coming to a close, but I cannot end without talking about SurviveHER. How was the origin of SurviveHER developed and birthed through this experience? I know you've done a lot of great work, so share with us how you came about SurviveHER and what you've been doing.
Oh, thank you so much for asking, Ashley. And I just want to say thank you for your support of SurviveHER. So I gave birth to SurviveHER October 1st, 2020 is when I launched. The need to share my story and use my media platform to do so in an impactful and purposeful way. Because I learned so much information over a course of, I think, 18 months of my journey through chemo, bilateral breast mastectomy, breast reconstruction, and a salpingo oophorectomy, which, by the way, I didn't mention because I carry the BRCA1 gene mutation. I'm at a higher risk for ovarian cancer. I had my ovaries and fallopian tubes removed. So I underwent so many procedures
Wow.
and surgeries. I didn't want to withhold this information. I said, women need to know about this. And so I launched SurviveHER to inform, inspire, and empower women year round, beyond the month of October, about breast cancer awareness and the importance of genetic testing, especially in the Black community. So through SurviveHER, I execute my mission through content, collaboration, and conversation, actually like the one we're having. So I contribute to blogs, I contribute to various media platforms, I engage in interviews, I raise money for women who are underserved and underinsured to support them in getting their mammography exams. SurviveHER is very, very busy. I'm so
I
passionate
love
about
it.
the work that I do, and I love it. I know for sure that I'm doing God's work, and I can just feel it in my spirit and in my soul every day when a woman reaches out to me and says, thank you, I got my mammogram, or thank you for walking me through my experience. Every little bit helps. And so SurviveHER, we're on a mission to help women.
I love the mission to inform, inspire, and empower. And thank you for the great work that you have done in the community, that you're doing in the community, and that you have yet to do in the community. We're going to wrap it up, but before we end, I want to ask you, or do you have any final words, and where can people find more about SurviveHER?
So in closing, I just want to encourage everyone watching, women specifically, schedule your mammogram and schedule your genetic test, because the more you know, the longer you'll live your life in your best, healthiest life. And for the men who are watching, you need to get a genetic test too, because Beyonce's dad, if you didn't know, was diagnosed with breast cancer. He is a BRCA2 gene mutation carrier. Just FYI, and I love Beyonce, by the way, so I had to throw that in there. But I had the privilege of interviewing Dr. Matthew Knowles and talking about his journey. So men too, Black men too, can be diagnosed with breast cancer. But you can follow the SurviveHER journey and all things SurviveHER through I'mASurviveHER.org and across all social media platforms at I'mASurviveHER.
Thank you, Lyndsay.
Thank you so much, Ashley. This was a wonderful conversation. And thank you again for the work that you do as a breast cancer research advocate, for a genetic BRCA genetic testing advocate. All of the work that you do in the community is so impressive and just phenomenal. So kudos to you.
Oh, thank you, Breasty.
You're welcome, Breasty.